Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Defense of Animals September Fireside Chat. And we have a great topic here for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have two absolutely excellent guests. I'm very excited to speak to and hear more about this campaigning. It's a couple of people who we've been working with for quite some time now regarding the San Francisco Zoo and the campaign for justice for those animals who have been suffering there for quite some time. First off, I've got Angelo Torres. He is our newest campaigner in Defense of Animals, and he is taking care of our Bay Area campaigning. So, welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for being here.
And secondly, we've got Justin Barker, who has been absolutely key in the San Francisco Zoo campaigning ever since he was a kid. He's been doing this for longer than anyone. He is the founder of SFZoo Watch, and he has been really a key player in exposing what the zoo has been getting up to. And so we're delighted to speak to you today, Justin. Thank you for joining us.
It's really good to be here.
And in our chat today, we have Mary Eacency, my dear colleague. She is going to be responding to your chats. So please, as usual, put in your questions there. We will come around to those at the end after Michael's going to give a presentation, then Justice's going to give a presentation, and then we're going to go to your questions at the end. And please also say hello, where you're from. We really love to hear where you're joining from. Got a great crowd here today already. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to In Defense of Animals Bay Area campaigner, Angelo Torres.
Thank you, Fleur. And thanks everyone for being here. This is really exciting for me. As Fleur mentioned, I'm the new Bay Area campaign coordinator. I actually celebrate my first month a couple days ago. So I'm almost a veteran, not quite, but I'm still learning. So I'm really excited to be here. And I guess let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, great. So anyways, again, thank you everyone for being here. This is very exciting for me. I'm going to talk about a little bit about In Defense of Animals and some of the things that I plan to do as a Bay Area campaigner, and also talk about our campaign, Rethink San Francisco Zoo. So I'd like to start off with a video that we recently put out, a short video, to kind of get us in the mood and kind of put us on the right track as far as what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so as the video says, a life without cages and suffering is what we aim for. And what I'd like to do now is, before we go into the actual specifics of the campaign, I did want to mention a little bit about In Defense of Animals. I know a lot of us know what we've heard of In Defense of Animals. We know what we do, but I just wanted to give a little bit more of a background as well to kind of go with it. So basically, as an overview, In Defense of Animals is an international animal protection organization with over 250,000 supporters and a 42-year history of protecting animal rights, welfare, and habitats through education, campaigns, and its hands-on rescue facilities. And our mission is to, sorry, I apologize. And our, God, I'm sorry, I apologize. And here's our mission as well. I also want to mention that, as far as, In Defense of Animals, that is in connection to the zoo, that in defense of animal has been for over 20 years, has been a driving force of reform at the San Francisco Zoo. In the early 2000s, we did outreach to the community and worked with the city's animal commission and city officials to pass the 2004 ordinance that effectively banned elephants in the city unless a vast new habitat was created. That effort led to the relocation of the zoo's surviving elephants to a sanctuary. And it was a challenge, but with the community, we helped to make it happen. And that's what this campaign is also about, continuing to make compassionate change at the zoo. And here's some of what we know currently at the zoo, behind the chain links and all the outdated infrastructure and enclosures. There are suffering animals. Again, I want to mention that, we want to thank you for being here today at our presentation. And again, I want to thank Fleur for being our host, and as well as Justin, who we'll hear from in a few minutes, to present on the zoo. So these are some of the items in which that we're going to talk about, some of the issues. We're going to talk about San Francisco Zoo and a history of the animal suffering there, the plan to bring the giant pandas to the zoo, activism, where are we now, future possibilities for the zoo and next steps for activism, and then questions and answers, period. And I also want to point out again, before we turn it over to Justin, that I am the Bay Area Campaigns Coordinator, that this is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Besides the zoo, there's a lot of other issues that are coming up and other matters to be of concern. Items such as the possibility of a glue trap ban is something that San Francisco, we hope to be working on in San Francisco as well. Horseback riding, will it return to Golden Gate Park? There's a lot of concerns concerning that, but that's something that the Department of Recreation and Parks is looking at possibly reinstating. There's always issues and concerns around animal intake at the city shelters and the funding for it. So again, there's a lot of different issues, a lot of different areas, and let's not, one that also comes up quite a bit is coexisting with wildlife, such as coyotes. So again, these are all issues that are all important, and these are all things that I hope to be able to address as a Bay Area campaign coordinator. And I look forward to hearing from everyone as far as your thoughts and ways that we can try and make San Francisco a more compassionate place for everybody, including our animals. So what I'd like to do now is go ahead and turn it over to Justin. Justin Barker is, of course, the founder of SFZoo Watch. And to be honest, I can't think of someone who's been more on the forefront and has more knowledge about zoo issues than Justin. It's really great to have him here. I know every single time he talks or presents, I learn something new. And I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have, as well as the questions that you'll have immediate following. So Justin, when you're ready, you can go ahead and start your presentation.
Thank you, Michael. It's really good to be here. We are going on about, I believe 18 months since our official campaign for change at the San Francisco Zoo, kind of the modern campaign has started. Are you seeing this sharing okay? Is everyone
Yes.
Okay, great.
Except there's currently like a box in the middle.
Okay, let's see if I can shift that. And how's that?
Perfect.
Great. Cool. So we've had a very successful campaign. I thought it would be really great to kind of back up a little bit and take us on a little journey of where this zoo has been, and how I have gotten involved, and how IDA and I have kind of teamed up over the years to create change at the zoo. I moved to San Francisco in 2006, and a year later of Christmas, the tiger escaped a cage at the San Francisco Zoo and killed one of the patrons at the zoo after attacking another one. And essentially, police showed up and had to kill the tiger. And it was really the first recorded escape and death of a zoo visitor in the U.S. So this was really surprising. Obviously, it made international news that a tiger had escaped. kind of interestingly, a year prior, this tiger had attacked its keeper, and severely injured its keeper's arm, her keeper's arm, and really, um, this was hopefully the beginning of big changes at San Francisco Zoo. IDA and myself and other activists really started a campaign to start advocating for change at San Francisco Zoo because, as we've experienced over the last few years at San Francisco Zoo, these big issues like a tiger escaping was just the tip of the iceberg. There was a lot of issues. After the news and the reality of a tiger escaping its cage broke, activists really started seeking change at San Francisco. We recruited international zoo leaders who showed up and toured the zoo and said this was, animals were suffering here. We revealed the misuse of bond funds that were promised to improve conditions for great apes that ended up going to fixing the entrance of the zoo and refurbishing the train. So we were really highlighting issues back then, 2008, documenting animal suffering, the pacing and the struggles that animals really faced there. And we really proposed an ambitious change to reimagine the San Francisco Zoo as a rescue facility. And we did a lot of work to really campaign for that. And in the end, we didn't actually have the political will to pull it off. We were very close, but we didn't get the votes at the Board of Supervisors to actually make that transition happen. But that really, to me, it was a really missed opportunity. We're here in San Francisco, one of the most progressive cities in the USA. And we had back then a zoo that was struggling with its infrastructure. Uh, the choice that the city made and that the zoo the zoological society made was to put Tanya Peterson in as the zoo director. The previous zoo director who oversaw the zoo when Tatiana escaped left, and Tanya was on the board of the zoo. She was a lawyer by trade and ultimately had zero experience working with animals, but was put in place as the zoo director, and spent a long time, almost 2 decades, at San Francisco Zoo. And under Tanya's leadership, we saw animals, people coming into the zoo and stealing animals right out of their cages. We saw animals get crushed by gates because of the failed infrastructure there. We saw, predators coming into the zoo and actually killing animals, and deaths and thefts and failed infrastructure. And this was, these are just a few examples of what happened over the years under Tanya's leadership. And so the San Francisco Zoo wasn't doing really it's the bare minimum of what a zoo is expected, to keep animals protected inside of their cages, and keep people out. So separate from the ethical argument around are zoos okay? Should animals be kept in captivity? The zoo wasn't doing kind of the bare minimum to protect animals. Uh, this was happening over time, and luckily, after many years of advocating, the media tells the story of what's happening at San Francisco Zoo. An amazing reporter, Tara Duggan, uh, did a lot of work to talk to keepers and employees, both current and former. And in April of 2024, launched probably the most scathing investigation and look inside the San Francisco Zoo. And this really highlighted many issues, including orangutans that were brought to the zoo before their enclosures were ready. So they were kept indoors in rat-infested conditions, having very little access to the outdoor. They had just like small tunnels, outdoor tunnels where they could spend time in during the day, but they spend much of their time indoors. And you know, the keepers, their keepers said they could hardly reach their hands over their head. That's how small the conditions were. Uh, we also the report from Tara also revealed that a grizzly bear escaped its primary containment, going after a keeper, and many other issues that were brought up in that investigation, really highlighting the dysfunction of zoo leadership, their lack of interest in actually hearing and listening to the calls from their employees about the conditions and the problems, the safety problems, the conditions that the animals and the employees were facing. Um, and almost ironically, the very next day after Tara's report came out, it was announced that the city would seek um, approval to get pandas to come to San Francisco. And um, you know, it was announced that Mayor Breed had just returned from China and got an initial uh, you know, kind of initial agreement, MOU, about bringing the pandas here, and that also made international news that the San Francisco Zoo would try to acquire pandas. And this, the juxtaposition of all of the problems that San Francisco Zoo faced, the almost 100-year-old infrastructure that had um, much of it hadn't been updated, juxtaposed against the idea that the San Francisco Zoo was going to spend millions of dollars to bring pandas to the zoo, was incredibly problematic, and continues to be, frankly. The fact that it hasn't been announced that the zoo is deciding and the city is deciding to take a different direction, and not bringing pandas is very problematic. Uh, you know, this ultimately started our campaign. The juxtaposition of a major you know, media organization revealing big problems, and the politicians' interest in bringing pandas really kickstarted this campaign. So I personally started SFZoo Watch, and luckily, many keepers, both current and employees, both current and former, kind of started sharing all sorts of information with San Francisco Zoo Watch. And we started really highlighting the big issues there. Tara did a great job of the investigation, but San Francisco Zoo Watch really wanted to, I really wanted to amplify those stories and really highlight the big issues that were happening at San Francisco. So San Francisco Zoo Watch launched in April of 2024, and very quickly, In Defense of Animals, San Francisco Zoo Watch, and Panda Voices, an international organization advocating for pandas all over the world, teamed up and launched a campaign for changes at San Francisco Zoo. So over the last, my math's not great, 18 months, how long has it been since April to 2024? We, you know, luckily, many folks have highlighted the issues at San Francisco Zoo. And if you're interested, you are welcome to go and explore at SFZoo Watch, click through to our Substack. We've done a very good job of telling the stories from current and former employees about what's happening at the zoo, and the media has been, we've been lucky with our campaign. We've done multiple op-eds to highlight the issues, proposing changes at San Francisco, and the campaign has been successful. The media has covered what has happened. Local activists have certainly stepped up to show up to City Hall to highlight the problems at San Francisco Zoo, and um, the media has covered it pretty well. Uh, Luckily, um, one of the efforts that paid off was the work that In Defense of Animals and San Francisco Zoo Watch did to rally the San Francisco's Animal Welfare Commission. And the Animal Welfare Commission has a seat. One person has a seat. Sorry, two people have a seat at the Joint Zoo Commission, which is a commission that happens at San Francisco City Hall, where members of the zoo and members of the city come together to kind of talk about what's happening at the zoo. And an animal welfare advisor who was on the Animal Commission did their own research to talk to former and current employees, and did a walkthrough with me, but did a lot of work to uncover big issues at San Francisco Zoo. I believe that this was a real turning point for this campaign, because within hours of this report highlighting that the zoo is ultimately unsafe for visitors and animals, and for their employees, became, not only the top story across the Bay Area, but also made international news that we, one of the most progressive, tech-forward cities in the country, has a zoo with dilapidated, unsafe conditions. And I think that the fact that a city entity that brought these, the facts forward, was really a turning point for change at San Francisco Zoo. Kind of fast forward that, this is a lot of headlines because this has been a major news story, largely because of the work of Tara Duggan, who has continued to report on every angle of this story since the investigation came out. But to kind of fast forward and give you kind of an overview of what's happened, the supervisors asked for an audit of the zoo. An independent audit organization started doing research to better understand what was happening inside, both financially and with the infrastructure, a whole kind of lineup of issues that this independent audit started to look into. That audit is still out and still in current is still uh, in the works. But Tanya Peterson, who's been leading this zoo, ultimately, her and her leadership were deemed uncooperative by auditors, were refusing to share key information, was sharing information about taxes, and their 990s weren't matching up with the financial information that they've had. So the initial information that came out public, that the auditors were actually not getting what they needed, and the information they were getting was contradicting, the known facts that the zoo had already published, was very problematic. And there was so much campaigning, both from the work that we were doing as activists, the work that employees were doing, and the union were doing. This was a group effort to really create change. Ultimately, the city really, shockingly, city officials started to call the zoo a complete embarrassment. And this was like this is the first time that city officials were like vocal about the problems that the zoo was facing. And then, a few months ago, there was this back and forth. Should Tanya Peterson stay in power? Should she go? And luckily, after kind of a lot of politicking that happened, the mayor's office got involved, and at the end of the day, Tanya Peterson has now stepped down as the zoo director at San Francisco Zoo. And there's now an interim team who is leading the zoo, and you know, this is the next phase. And we are in this kind of middle zone right now, as we are looking to see what's next, because it's a big deal that Tanya Peterson is no longer the zoo director at San Francisco. As I said earlier, she led for almost 2 decades, and she was responsible for the exit of some of the most talented animal care professionals at San Francisco Zoo, who were big advocates for animal welfare at the zoo. She caused a lot of problems internally, and created from what I've been told from employees, a very toxic work environment, and had no vision for the zoo, was unable to, in her 2 decades, come up with a master plan to actually envision what the future held for this zoo. So I'm cautiously optimistic that Tanya Peterson is out. And luckily, I think this new leadership, I'm getting tastes of a different approach. They are willing, it, in the way that we've worked. As an activist, I always really believe in collaboration, and hey, how do we like team up and work together to find common solutions? Tanya Peterson had no interest in collaborations, no interest in lines of communication, and that's changing. The current zoo leadership, the interim zoo leadership, is opening up lines of communication, and so I'm cautiously optimistic that this is a potential turning point for a real change in San Francisco.
That is incredibly exciting. And I think thank you so much, Justin. Thank you so much, Michael, for that excellent kind of background into what we've been facing here with the campaign at San Francisco Zoo. And what incredible achievements so far. Really, just to think in just over a little over a year that after exposing that and working very, very hard, getting all of that media coverage, getting all of those, zookeepers to talk, that finally you managed to topple the zoo director. But I have a question, and of course I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to ask their questions. So please write your questions in the chat. Um, is everything okay now that we have, if we're going to have a new director and things are kind of looking a bit better, is it okay to just stop there? And that's to both of you.
Justin, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, sure. There's no stopping now. I'm optimistic that we'll be able to start have building a different relationship with zoo management, and be able to collaborate on what's changing. But at the end of the day, we have a zoo that is, much of the infrastructure is close to 100 years old. And we have a total lack of vision of what this zoo looks like, what the future holds for this zoo. And the truth is the public, his taste for captivity has changed dramatically, particularly in a place in San Francisco. That the current zoo model, this is a Victorian era model, that it is okay to put animals in cages that people can point and look at and call this education. Unfortunately, the public is incredibly smart, and realizes how depressing it is to go and see animals in cages. And so the public's taste has changed. And I do think that it's really time to interrupt and disrupt the current model. Because how long ago was the Victorian? Back to being bad at math. Like, how long ago was the Victorian era?
At least over 100 years.
100 years, over 100 years. And so in a city like San Francisco, where disruption of the most basic things happens all the time, it's time to disrupt the current zoo model and really reimagine what like land that the San Francisco Zoo sits on looks like. And how do we bring it into the current time? How do we actually create something that is good for animals, good for the community, and isn't just the following through on the desires of politicians. Because what we also know is that people aren't particularly keen on the pandas either. While these politicians are pushing for the efforts to bring the pandas to the zoo, and haven't decided to leave that ill planned strategy of bringing these animals to San Francisco, um, that the public doesn't want that maybe politicians do, and it might be in the politicians' best interest. But what we know from almost every zoo that has kept pandas in the country is you get a big spike and then it drops down and they're unaffordable. So why are we going to continue to treat animals like they're objects to be pointed and entertained by? It's essentially the circus. It's SeaWorld. It's no different. And the taste for this business model has changed. So it's time, I think, that there's a huge turning point here, that the San Francisco Zoo and its leadership has an opportunity to say, we're not going to continue down the path we've continued. That putting animals in cages is not the move. So that's a very long explanation to your question. But no, this campaign for change at San Francisco Zoo, as far as I'm concerned, is just getting started.
Brilliant. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Justin. Same to you, Michael.
Yeah, and actually a couple of things I wanted to mention. I kind of lost my flow a little bit, lost the plot a little bit earlier with my technical difficulty. So there was a couple things I didn't mention. So if I could, real fast, I'd like to mention. I did go through some of the itinerary for today, and I did want to mention that if you looked at all those different items, each one of them is deserving of a fireside chat on its own. So what I do want to point out is that there will be more discussions, definitely. I mean, the pandas, that's a whole nother discussion that we can have. And in fact, back in April 2024, we had a wonderful presentation concerning pandas by the wonderful Tatiana Santiago from Panda Voices. So I would definitely invite people to check that out, because it's very informative. But there is a need for more updated information. Things change all the time, so that's what we're going to be moving forward with. In addition, we'll talk a little bit more about this as well in a few minutes. But plans for the future. What does the San Francisco Zoo look like going forward? So anyway, so again, we'll touch on that. But to kind of get back to what Fleur asked and what Justin very eloquently covered, and I don't think there's anything he did not cover. So I don't know how much more I can add to it. But one thing I would say is that the zoo, well, first of all, it's unbelievable, and there's no way that we can continue with the traditional zoo model. It's just impossible. I mean, things have evolved so much. The zoo, San Francisco Zoo, has been basically in a time lapse for I don't know how long. They have refused to move or acknowledge changing thoughts as far as the zoo goes, or basically look at the infrastructure. They've refused to basically do anything that's of this century. One other thing I was going to mention too is, as far as going back, I feel that the San Francisco Zoo, their reputation is beyond repair at this point. There's no way they can go back to business as usual. So I think that with the help of people like Justin, as well as with IDA and all the people here, I'm reading some of those comments and they're so on point. I think that that we can definitely move forward with trying to get a more compassionate location, a more conservation friendly location, and basically a place where we can have where families can go without having to endure or watch animals suffering. So, anyways, it's very exciting for me. I think that this is a real turning point in time. Um, Tanya Robinson, excuse me, Tanya Peterson leaving. I mean, that's one step of many steps to reforming the zoo or to re-envisioning the zoo, reimagining the zoo. But it can't be underestimated what a step that is. And the fact that, there are people, there are activists such as Justin and some of my colleagues at IDA that were there on the forefronts, it's just amazing. So again, it's great to be part of this campaign, and and we look forward to additional things that we're going to do going forward with it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Michael. I too share that excitement deeply with you. And I think our supporters here do too. Mary, I see some questions in the Q&A section, which are just on this topic.
Yeah, there's a forward there and 3 from the chat. So I don't know if you've been reading them, but they're a little long. But here's some of the shorter ones. Someone asked, do campaigners get the sense that the new regime is open to transitioning to a sanctuary model? Does it seem like it's going to be possible?
I'll answer that first, Justin, if you're okay with it, and you can answer it after, or you can give your quick. I don't know, to be honest, but what I do know is that definitely the new and well, a couple things. One is, there is definitely there's two new, or rather I shouldn't say, there's two co-interim CEOs at the zoo. One of them is an employee that's been there a while. Another one is an employee who basically who started recently. I feel that there's open-mindedness and there's a genuineness about one in particular. The other one, I'm not saying anything bad about or anything else, but just the one I've spoken to, who is Cassandra Costello. I think she's very genuine. I think she's very sincere. I think she's open to hearing from other people, and I know basically that she has been contacting other people and talking to people and listening. I think that there's an open-mindedness there, and I think that there's the ability at least to listen, which was not happening with the previous CEO. So as far as what the plans are and what they foresee as far as the future of the zoo, I'm not too sure, but I do know that definitely there is an openness to listening. And I think that when we go forward with our plans or with our thoughts, that, it makes sense. So I do see some positivity there, and and we're definitely very inspired. And I think that definitely there's good things that could happen. But again, it's part of just being part of the campaign and moving it forward, and just being appreciative that there are people at the zoo right now who basically who are listening, and hopefully they're willing to make change in a way that's meaningful for everyone.
Fingers crossed. Yes, that does sound hopeful. Justin, do you have anything to add there, or should we go on to some other questions?
Yeah, I'm optimistic that there is opportunity for change, and that, like I said, collaboration is possible. I think that anyone, Jeff and Cassandra are, I assume are pretty smart business people. Cassandra has a background in travel, and Jeff Pace looks at the numbers of the San Francisco Zoo probably every day. And you don't have to look very far to really see that the zoo is financially struggling, that it hasn't done particularly well. And Cassandra has a background in travel. And so my hope is, obviously there's going to be a new permanent director that comes in, and there's still questions about who the person will be. But I'm really optimistic that, folks that realize, that are smart enough to really start thinking big about what's next. And I hope that collaborations with activists really are fruitful. And I will also say that the current mayor of San Francisco, Daniel Lurie, is a guy that wants to do ambitious things, and doesn't want to do mediocre things. And so my hope is that with this kind of new set of leadership, that they're willing to connect. I'm actually meeting with Cassandra tomorrow, that they're willing to think big about what's next. And that really, my hope is that that big thinking alleviates a lot of animal suffering that's currently happening at the zoo.
Yeah,
Thank
kind of
you.
like along those same lines as far as big thinking. We hear the mayor all the time talking about revitalizing downtown, revitalizing Fisherman's Wharf, making changes to Treasure Island. Well, we appreciate that vibrancy, and I know in some cases maybe what those changes aren't going to basically be the changes that everybody wants, but still at least there's an openness mindedness to him to look at things and make change. And where else is change needed more than at the zoo? So we're hoping that yeah, again, the fact that like we have a new administration in place, one that seems a little bit more open-minded than the previous one, and let's see what kind of changes can happen. Actually, I do have a question for Justin, because one of the things we did talk about was plans for the future. I was wondering, is there any kind of thoughts you'd like to run by or like share with people as far as what do we envision happening with the zoo? What are some thoughts as far as going forward? Any kind of locations that kind of inspire or we should look out for guidance? Anything you could share as far as for people just to kind of have an idea of like what we're kind of thinking about doing going forward?
Yeah, I feel like there's a bunch of emerging trends that are happening around the world, and I feel like they're really good examples of ways that we could potentially shift. I can talk about in North America, the Toronto Zoo decided to give up their pandas and because they were no longer working financially working for the zoo, and they really pivoted their model to focus on the climate and restoring local animal populations. So they went on really super focused on local efforts. So I think Toronto Zoo is a good example of a huge pivot away from the let's keep exotic animals. They dramatically reduced how many animals are actually at Toronto. So I would say that Toronto is a good example of a shift. And I really like the shift that's happened in Argentina. Two zoos in Argentina have transitioned to eco parks, where they have translocated most of the animals that were living in their zoos and to sanctuaries, back to the model of dramatically reducing how many animals are actually on site and letting the animals live the rest of their lives in better conditions in sanctuaries. And then really using technology and moving away from that animals in cages is the way people want to learn about nature. And the Buenos Aires Zoo and the Mendoza Zoo are great examples of these eco parks. And I certainly think that there's other emerging models, but I'm excited about those two in particular, about the direction Toronto Zoo has taken and the big step that the zoos in Argentina have taken to transition to eco parks. So we're not just like in the dark here. There's actions that are happening globally that I think could inspire what's next in San Francisco.
Great. Can I
Well
ask you one more
said.
thing, Justin? Oh, I apologize. Laura, did you want to
No,
continue?
no, go ahead. I was going to
Okay.
say that I think that that answers a few more of our questions that were in the Q&A, and of course we'll go to Mary for some more in a second. Sorry, Michael.
Perfect. Oh no, I was just going to mention one of the things that we also talked about that we would like to cover here is the pandas. Would you want to share any thoughts as far as the giant panda program and what's happening right now with it, and just any kind of information for people to know about and what to look out for as far as what are some of the things that we need to be aware of, and when do we need to react to make sure that this doesn't move forward?
Yeah, I think that when we started this campaign, I hadn't actually, I didn't understand the realities of the Panda program. I knew what was happening in San Francisco, didn't know the realities of the Panda program. Luckily, since our campaign began in April, the New York Times has done absolutely an amazing ongoing investigation of the reality of the Panda program, and no one could look at that investigation and think that it was a good idea to bring pandas to San Francisco Zoo. No one in their right mind, no one that wants to be financially responsible, no one that cares about, transparency in government. The list goes on and on. You can't back pandas at the San Francisco Zoo after reading that investigation, because that investigation exposed that the millions of dollars that a zoo spends to rent pandas every year ends up building hotel or apartment buildings and roads and doesn't go to conservation. That zoos sign agreements that they will get approval from the Chinese government before they put press releases out about their pandas, that you can't actually have free flowing live cams of your pandas, that footage has to be approved. In a place like San Francisco, where we believe in transparency and we believe in all sorts of aspects of the government, bringing pandas here is bad. And that's not even talking about the animal neglect and abuse that happens. The fact that China has these panda breeding programs, and the New York Times investigation really blew open the lid about the reality of that. These pandas are being bred to be put into zoos. It's an effort from the Chinese government it's called soft diplomacy. These little cuddly animals they work their way into local government and state government, and it's just bad. It's just bad business. So I would absolutely encourage anyone that is, considering pandas to really take a look at that. All you have to do is look at NewYorkTimes.com, search pandas, and you will learn more than you'll ever want to learn about the problems with the panda program. And I'll just add one more thing. No zoo that has had pandas ends up financially benefiting in the long term. When you're spending millions of dollars to China for your panda rentals, millions of dollars to build an enclosure, those are millions of dollars that could go towards improving conditions, to reimagining the conditions at San Francisco, reimagining what San Francisco Zoo could possibly do. So my long-winded answer is that pandas is a bad idea. And we have a lot of facts and figures from the New York Times that are as recent as a year ago to really make a case that pandas is not the move.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Justin. And yeah, great question there, Michael. It's really unfortunately, quite shocking stuff to read and watch that investigation. I think anyone who cares even a little bit about animals would be totally shocked by what goes on. And I want to say also a big thank you, Mary. I see you just dropped in the chat there our take action link. So we've actually got two open alerts that you can sign right now that go to the relevant decision makers. One to say stop, do not bring pandas to the San Francisco Zoo, and the other one that says rethink the San Francisco Zoo as in a more compassionate model like the ones we've been discussing. But finally, Mary, I want to go, we've got a few minutes left, so I just want to go to our closing questions.
All right. Here is a good question. Okay. Specifically, the WPA era buildings and habitats, can those buildings be torn down, or are they historical landmarks with the city and have to remain in their original form?
Actually, that's a good question. We were talking about this, Justin, as well. Did you want to take this question?
I know that the Mother's Building, which is not in use anymore, is historically protected, and I believe that there is some approvals that need to happen, but that's going to take some advocacy. If the truth is that there's WPA buildings and old infrastructure, there'll absolutely be a campaign to advocate that. I don't believe that there's keeping structures that are hundreds of years old to contain animals is like historic. I believe that, like, you know, maybe the Mother's Building should remain at the San Francisco Zoo, and there should be some sort of nod to the infrastructure and the realities that animals faced at the San Francisco Zoo. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, all the band-aiding that they've done, they kind of like build cages off the side of these WPA buildings. I think everything that was built during the WPA era needs to go, needs to be torn down, and there needs to be an ambitious reimagining of this space.
There you go. Mary, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Animals don't belong in buildings that are hundreds of years old. That was a very good question. Thank you for that one. Any others?
Yeah. Here's a question. What about Peterson's Nepo hires? Are they still in power now? I didn't know about these, but
You know, there was a few pieces that came out in the Chronicle about, you know, the folks that were brought in certain roles that were related to Tanya Peterson. My biggest concern, I'm not really sure about the details of who remains in those specific roles. I am deeply concerned about the folks who were put in place during Tanya's era on the Zoological Society. Many of people who advocated for Tanya to stay in place, who are good friends with Tanya, who are in her social circles, still remain leaders in the Zoological Society, and that is very, very concerning to me. Like, while I'm optimistic about you know, this interim leadership, I am not optimistic about the Zoological Society continuing to run the zoo, because they proved that they could advocate for keeping Tanya in her role. Many of these people have zero experience in animal care. To answer that question, I really believe there needs to be a new organization that comes in to run the San Francisco Zoo to really eliminate the problems that remain, the lingering issues that remain post Tanya Peterson.
Yes.
Great. Very good. Mary, I think we may have time for just one more.
well, the main one I see here is what can we do to help? And I've been putting the alerts, the IDA alerts in the chat. They're basically, like you said, two, right? So I put the one for the pandas and the one that is just for rethink San Francisco Zoo. So they're both in the chat, and I think I'll just paste them again. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I see one of our friends who regularly attends the San Francisco Zoo Committee, Richard Rothman, who is a big advocate of Mother's Building, is in the chat there. So hi, Richard. You are very welcome here today. Thank you for being a fierce campaigner for the good parts about the zoo, including Mother's Building, which is absolutely gorgeous and it contains some beautiful murals, and we wholeheartedly support maintaining that building, and of course as long as no animals will be kept there, and I'm sure you feel the exact same way about that too. Are there any closing remarks from our dear presenters here, Michael or Justin?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody again for attending. Again, I apologize for my technical difficulties at the very beginning, and I look forward to hearing from everyone. My email address again is michaelangelo@idausa.org. Please feel free to reach out to me if there's any kind of Bay Area issues that you'd like us to work on. If you'd like someone to come by and talk to your group, or if you'd like to meet to talk about a particular issue, please let me know, because I would love to be able to do that. And yes, please continue to follow the campaign, because there's going to be a lot more information. As we've talked about, this is a very crucial time, and it's a very exciting time as well. I hate to use the word excitement or exciting when it's something that, you know, when it was something horrific that brought us to this point. But at the same time, there's no denying that right now is that time for change. And we have some wonderful, incredibly informative and compassionate people, such as Fleur and Mary and Justin, of course, who are ready to make that change happen and do what we need to do to make that change happen. So please join us. If there's any kind of questions or any kind of follow-up, please feel free to reach out to me. And thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Michael. Justin, any closing words?
Yeah, well, thank you for organizing this gathering. It really takes people in the Bay Area and beyond to create change. There's a lot of systematic pieces that, are going to hold firm to really old ideas. And storytelling and inspiration and advocacy beyond, just really showing up both to City Hall and jumping on the phone, sending emails, like all of that really makes a really big difference. So please don't underestimate the effort it might take to jump on a call or send an email to share your feelings. As an activist, I know we're over time, but I always have heard that for every one email that comes in, politicians times that by 1,000. So, if one person sends a message, they kind of anticipate that 1,000 other people also feel the same way. So it doesn't take that many people to actually create change for like local issues like this. So please really do what you can to advocate for change at San Francisco.
Thank you so much, Justin, and absolutely well said. And I will say huge thanks to you for joining us here today and for supporting
Yes.
us, because we wouldn't be here if it weren't for you supporting us through your generous donations. So if you would like to give a gift, it will go directly to all of our work, including this very important campaign. And the link is idausa.org/donate. That's idausa.org/donate. Thank you for making our work possible. We are fighting as hard as we possibly can, and we appreciate you being with us in that fight. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Mary. It's been wonderful, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Fireside Chat.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.